What if I told you that you could achieve financial independence with just $300,000? Not $2 million like most financial advisors claim you need. Not even the $500,000 that some experts say is the bare minimum. Just $300,000, and you could potentially never work another day in your life. Most people would laugh at that idea. They'd say you're living in a fantasy world where money grows on trees and expenses don't exist. But here's the thing that might blow your mind. There are people right now living comfortably, traveling the world and pursuing their passions with exactly that amount of money working for them. My name is Adam, and I help people understand how simple financial strategies can create extraordinary results. If you're tired of being told you need millions to retire and want to discover how regular people are achieving freedom with far less, subscribe to the channel so you can avoid listening to Karen whine about her kids at the water cooler every morning for the next 30 years. Here's where most people get stuck before they even start. They've heard about something called the 4% rule, which says you can safely withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year without running out of money. Using that math, $300,000 would only generate $12,000 per year. That's just $1,000 per month, and most people immediately think that's impossible to live on. But here's what the traditional financial advice won't tell you. The 4% rule was designed for people who want to maintain their current lifestyle forever without ever touching their principal. It's built for someone making $100,000 per year who wants to spend $100,000 per year in retirement. That's not financial independence. That's just shifting from earning money to spending money. The 4% rule also assumes you're living in high-cost areas with high-cost lifestyles. It assumes you'll have a mortgage, car payments, and all the expensive habits that keep most people trapped in the rat race. But what if you approach this completely differently? What if instead of trying to maintain an expensive lifestyle, you designed a lifestyle that was both fulfilling and affordable? What if you realized that most of what you spend money on doesn't actually make you happier? What if you discovered that the things that bring real joy and satisfaction cost far less than you think? The truth is, the 4% rule isn't wrong, but it's solving the wrong problem. It's trying to help people afford an expensive life when what they really need is a better life. And a better life doesn't require nearly as much money as most people believe. Think about it this way. The person who needs $8,000 per month to be happy is infinitely poorer than the person who can thrive on $2,000 per month, regardless of how much either of them has in the bank. Your expenses determine your freedom, not your income. This is why focusing solely on accumulating more money without addressing your spending is like trying to fill a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom. You can pour as much water as you want, but you'll never get ahead until you fix the leak. Here's where the magic happens, and it's simpler than most people realize. The strategy has two main components that work together to make $300,000 stretch far beyond what traditional advice suggests is possible. First, you get ruthlessly honest about what you actually need versus what you think you want. Most people are spending money on things that don't improve their lives in any meaningful way. They're paying for convenience they don't need, status they don't enjoy, and stuff they don't use. When you strip away everything that doesn't genuinely add value to your life, you discover that living well costs far less than living expensively. Second, you use geographic arbitrage to your advantage. This doesn't mean you have to move to a developing country and live in a hut, though that's certainly one option. It means being strategic about where you live and how your money translates to quality of life. Here's a reality check that might surprise you. There are places in the United States where you can rent a decent apartment for $600 per month. There are small towns where you can buy a house outright for $50,000. There are entire regions where your dollar stretches 2 or 3 times further than in major metropolitan areas. But it gets even more interesting when you consider international options. In countries like Portugal, Mexico, or parts of Eastern Europe, $1,500 per month can provide a lifestyle that would cost $5,000 per month in New York or San Francisco. You're not sacrificing quality of life. You're optimizing for it. Let's run the numbers with a realistic scenario. You have $300,000 invested in a diversified portfolio generating 7% annually. That's $21,000 per year or $1,750 per month in passive income. In many parts of the world, that's not just survival money. That's comfortable living money. Maybe you choose a charming town in Portugal where your rent is $500 per month. Your food costs $300, utilities are $100, and you have $850 left over for transportation, entertainment, healthcare, and unexpected expenses. You're not just getting by. You're living well, exploring a new culture, learning a new language, and having experiences that most people only dream about. Or maybe international living isn't for you, but you're willing to consider smaller American cities where the cost of living is dramatically lower. Places where $1,750 per month isn't poverty. It's middle-class comfort with money left over for savings and fun. The key insight is this: your money doesn't care where you spend it, but where you spend it determines how far your money goes. Geographic arbitrage isn't about lowering your standard of living. It's about raising your standard of living while lowering your cost of living. Here's something that will completely change how you think about financial independence, and it's an advantage that most high earners will never have. When your income is low, the tax system actually works in your favor in ways that can dramatically accelerate your path to freedom. Let me explain how this works because it's honestly mind-blowing once you understand it. If you're living off $21,000 per year from your investments, you're not just in a low tax bracket. You might not owe any federal income taxes at all. For 2025, the standard deduction for a single person is $15,750. That means the first $15,750 of your income is completely tax-free. If your total income is $21,000, you're only paying taxes on $5,025. At the 10% tax bracket, that's just $525 in federal taxes for the entire year. But it gets even better. If your income comes from qualified dividends and long-term capital gains, which it will if you're investing properly, you might pay zero federal taxes on that income. The capital gains tax rate for people in the lowest tax brackets is literally 0%. Think about what this means. You could be living comfortably on $21,000 per year and keeping almost every penny of it. Meanwhile, someone making $100,000 per year is losing $25,000 or more to taxes alone. They need to earn $125,000 just to take home what you're keeping from $21,000. This tax advantage extends beyond just federal income taxes. Many states have no state income tax, and if you're living internationally, you might qualify for the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion, which can eliminate U.S. taxes on income up to about $120,000 per year. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because your official income is so low, you might qualify for subsidies and programs that high earners can't access. Healthcare subsidies through the Affordable Care Act, for example, could reduce your health insurance cost to almost nothing. You might qualify for reduced cost utilities, property tax exemptions, or other local programs designed to help people with lower incomes. The irony is that you're financially independent with $300,000 in assets, but on paper your income looks like you need help. This creates a situation where your effective cost of living drops even further. If healthcare that would cost a high earner $800 per month only costs you $100 because of subsidies, that's $700 more per month in your pocket. That's $8,400 per year in additional purchasing power just from being smart about your tax situation. The wealthy understand this principle, which is why many billionaires have surprisingly low official incomes. They've structured their finances so their wealth grows through appreciation rather than taxable income. You're essentially using the same strategy, just on a smaller scale. Now let's talk about how to actually build that $300,000 portfolio, because this is where most people get overwhelmed and give up before they start. The good news is that the strategy is much simpler than the financial industry wants you to believe. First, forget everything you've heard about complex investment strategies, individual stock picking, or trying to time the market. You don't need to become a financial expert or spend hours analyzing companies. You need a boring, reliable approach that works while you sleep. The foundation of your portfolio should be low-cost index funds. These are funds that own tiny pieces of hundreds or thousands of companies, which means you're automatically diversified without having to research individual stocks. The most important funds to consider are total stock market index funds and total bond market index funds. Here's a simple allocation that has worked for decades: 70% stocks through a total stock market index fund and 30% bonds through a total bond market index fund. This gives you growth potential from stocks while the bonds provide stability during market downturns. As you get closer to needing the money, you can gradually shift more toward bonds for additional stability. But when you're building wealth, that 70-30 split has historically generated returns between 7% and 9% annually over long periods. The key is choosing funds with extremely low expense ratios. You want expense ratios under 0.1% if possible. This might seem like a tiny difference, but over decades, high fees can steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from your returns. Now, how do you actually accumulate $300,000? If you can save $1,000 per month and invest it in this portfolio, you'll reach $300,000 in about 20 years, assuming 7% annual returns. If you can save $1,500 per month, you'll get there in about 15 years. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They think they need to save huge amounts from day one. Start with whatever you can, even if it's just $200 per month. The habit of consistent investing is more important than the amount when you're starting out. Every raise you get, every tax refund you receive, every bonus or side hustle income should go directly into this portfolio. Don't let lifestyle inflation steal your future freedom. Treat your investment contributions like a non-negotiable bill that must be paid every month. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it's completely automatic once you set it up. You can have money transferred from your checking account to your investment account on the same day you get paid. You never see the money, so you never miss it. Most brokerages offer automatic investing where your contributions are immediately invested in your chosen funds. This eliminates the temptation to time the market or make emotional decisions based on daily market movements. The hardest part isn't the investing strategy. It's maintaining the discipline to keep investing consistently, especially during market downturns when everything feels scary. But those downturns are actually when your regular contributions buy the most shares for your money. Here's where this strategy gets even more powerful, and it's something that traditional retirement advice completely ignores. You don't have to choose between working full-time forever or never working again. There's a middle ground that makes $300,000 go much further while giving you incredible flexibility. It's called Barista FIRE, and the concept is brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of generating 100% of your income from investments, you generate maybe 60% to 70% from your portfolio and cover the rest with part-time work that you actually enjoy. Think about what this means for your numbers. If your $300,000 is generating $1,750 per month, you only need to earn an additional $500 to $800 per month to live very comfortably. That's not a full-time job. That's 15 to 20 hours per week doing something you find interesting or meaningful. Maybe you work part-time at a local bookstore because you love being around books and talking to readers. Maybe you do freelance writing, tutoring, or consulting in your area of expertise. Maybe you drive for a rideshare service a few hours per week or sell crafts online. The key is that you're choosing this work because you want to, not because you have to. This approach creates multiple layers of financial security. If the stock market has a bad year and your investment income drops temporarily, your part-time income helps bridge the gap. If you get tired of your part-time work, your investments provide a safety net while you find something else or take a break entirely. But here's the psychological benefit that might be even more valuable than the financial one. Many people struggle with the idea of complete retirement because they derive meaning and social connection from work. Barista FIRE lets you maintain those benefits without the stress and time commitment of a traditional career. You're working because you choose to, not because you're trapped. You can quit any time, take extended vacations, or negotiate terms that would be impossible in a traditional job. Your boss can't threaten your livelihood because your livelihood doesn't depend entirely on that job. The math becomes even more compelling when you consider that part-time income often comes with lower stress and higher hourly rates. When you're not desperate for work, you can be selective about opportunities. You can focus on clients and projects that pay well and align with your values. Plus, that extra income doesn't all have to go toward living expenses. Maybe you use it to travel more, pursue hobbies, or even reinvest it to grow your portfolio further. The flexibility is entirely yours. Let's make this concrete with a realistic example that shows exactly how someone could live well on the income generated by a $300,000 portfolio. This isn't theoretical. These are real numbers that real people are using right now. Our example person has $300,000 invested in a diversified portfolio generating 7% annually, which provides $21,000 per year or $1,750 per month. They've also chosen to do some part-time work that brings in an additional $600 per month for a total monthly income of $2,350. They've decided to live in a smaller city in a low-cost state where their money stretches much further than it would in major metropolitan areas. Here's how their monthly budget breaks down. Housing costs $650 per month. This could be rent for a decent one-bedroom apartment or the total carrying costs for a small house they own outright. By avoiding expensive coastal cities and choosing areas with reasonable housing costs, they've kept their largest expense manageable. Food and groceries cost $400 per month. This includes eating out occasionally but focuses primarily on cooking at home with quality ingredients. They've learned that cooking can be both enjoyable and economical, and they're eating better than when they relied on expensive takeout and restaurant meals. Transportation runs $200 per month. They own a reliable used car that's paid off, so this covers insurance, gas, maintenance, and occasional repairs. They're not trying to impress anyone with their vehicle. They just need dependable transportation that doesn't drain their budget. Utilities and phone service total $150 per month. This includes electricity, water, internet, and a basic cell phone plan. They've avoided the trap of paying for premium services and features they don't actually need or use. Healthcare costs $250 per month. Because their official income is low, They qualify for significant subsidies on health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. What would cost someone with higher income $800 per month only costs them a fraction of that amount. Entertainment and miscellaneous expenses get $300 per month. This covers streaming services, books, occasional movies, dining out, hobbies, and small purchases that make life enjoyable. They're not living like monks, but they're being intentional about where their entertainment dollars go. That leaves $400 per month completely unallocated. This money can go toward building an emergency fund, taking vacations, handling unexpected expenses, or even reinvesting to grow their portfolio further. Having this buffer means they're not living paycheck to paycheck, even though their income is relatively modest. The total monthly expenses are $1,950, leaving them with a $400 cushion every single month. Over the course of a year, that's $4,800 in additional financial flexibility. They're not just surviving on this budget. They're thriving while building additional wealth and security. This example shows that $300,000 can absolutely provide financial independence when you're strategic about your lifestyle choices and location. The key is designing a life that's both fulfilling and affordable, rather than trying to maintain expensive habits that don't actually improve your happiness. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Every time someone talks about living on a smaller amount of money, 3 concerns immediately come up. What about healthcare costs? What about inflation eating away at your purchasing power? And what happens if the stock market crashes right when you need the money? These are legitimate concerns, and anyone pursuing this strategy needs to have solid answers. The good news is that each of these risks can be managed much more easily than most people realize. Healthcare is probably the biggest worry for most Americans, and rightfully so. Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country. But here's where having a low official income actually becomes a massive advantage. When your income is $21,000 per year, you qualify for substantial healthcare subsidies that can reduce your insurance costs to almost nothing. Through the Affordable Care Act marketplace, someone with this income level might pay as little as $50 to $100 per month for health insurance that would cost a high earner $800 or more. The subsidies aren't just for premiums either. They also reduce deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums, making healthcare genuinely affordable. If you're living internationally, many countries offer high-quality healthcare at a fraction of U.S. costs. In countries like Portugal or Mexico, you can get excellent medical care for what you'd pay as a copay in the United States. Some expats find that even paying out of pocket for routine care costs less than their old insurance premiums. Inflation is the second major concern, and it's actually built into the strategy if you do it correctly. Historical stock market returns already account for inflation. When we talk about 7% annual returns, that's the real return after inflation has been factored in. Your purchasing power isn't just maintained, it actually grows over time. Plus, when you're living on investment returns rather than spending down your principal, your portfolio continues to grow even while you're drawing income from it. If inflation pushes your expenses higher, your portfolio value and the income it generates tend to rise proportionally. The flexibility of this approach also provides inflation protection that traditional retirement plans lack. If costs rise significantly in one area, you can relocate to somewhere more affordable. If healthcare gets expensive in the US, you can move to a country with better healthcare costs. You're not locked into any particular location or lifestyle. Market crashes are the third big fear, and this one requires the most careful planning. The key is understanding that market volatility is temporary while market growth is permanent. Over any 20-year period, the stock market has never lost money. The crashes are real, but they're also opportunities if you're prepared for them. This is why having that part-time income buffer is so valuable. During market downturns, you can reduce or eliminate withdrawals from your portfolio, living primarily on your work income until markets recover. This prevents you from selling investments at depressed prices, which is how people actually lose money in crashes. You can also structure your portfolio with a bond allocation that provides steady income even when stocks are volatile. Those bonds act as a stabilizer, generating consistent returns that can cover your basic expenses while your stock investments recover. The most important protection against all these risks is flexibility. When you're not locked into expensive commitments like large mortgages or car payments, you can adapt to changing circumstances. You can reduce expenses temporarily, increase income temporarily, or relocate to more favorable conditions. This adaptability is actually a huge advantage over traditional retirement approaches that assume you'll maintain the same lifestyle and location forever. Economic conditions change, but your ability to respond to those changes determines whether they become problems or just minor adjustments. Here's what this all comes down to. Financial independence isn't about accumulating massive wealth or living like a millionaire. It's about having choices. It's about waking up each day knowing that you're living your life according to your values rather than your bank account balance. But if you do want to live a baller lifestyle by making $10,000 a month or more from dividend income, watch this next video.